Hey guys, remember to like the video and hit subscribe.
Oh, we revoked her visa. It's an F1 visa, I believe. We revoked it, and here's why. And I'll say it again. I said it everywhere. Let me be abundantly clear, okay? If you go apply for a visa right now, anywhere in the world, let me just send this message out.
F1 visa is a student visa.
If you apply for a visa to enter the United States and be a student, and you tell us that the reason why you're coming to the United States is not just because you want to write op-eds, but because you want to participate in movements that are involved in doing things like vandalizing universities, harassing students, taking over buildings, creating a ruckus, we're not going to give you a visa. If you lie to us and get a visa and then enter the United States, it's not just because you want to write op-eds, but because you want to participate in movements that are involved in doing things like vandalizing universities, harassing students, taking over buildings, creating a ruckus, we're not going to give you a visa. If you lie to us and get a visa and then enter the United States and with that visa participate in that sort of activity, we're going to take away your visa.
So protesting or writing, these are things that are visa revocable now? Can we just like add that to the visa rules, I guess?
And once you've lost your visa, you're no longer legally in the United States, and we have a right, like every country in the world has a right, to remove you from our country. So it's just that simple. I think it's crazy. I think it's stupid for any country in the world to welcome people into their country that are going to go to your universities as visitors. They're visitors. And say, I'm going to your universities to start a riot. I'm going to your universities to take over a library and harass people. I don't care what movement you're involved in. Why would any country in the world allow people to come and disrupt? Now, we gave you a visa to come and study and get a degree, not to become a social activist that tears up our university campuses. And if we've given you a visa and then you decide to do that, we're going to take it away. I encourage every country to do that.
So people on visa have no speech protections in the United States. Is that what we're saying?
By the way, because I think it's crazy to invite students into your country that are coming onto your campus and destabilizing it. We're just not going to have it. So we'll revoke your visa, and once your visa is revoked, you're illegally in the country and you have to leave. Every country in the world has a right to decide who comes in as a visitor and who doesn't. If you invite me into your home because you say, I want to come to your house for dinner, and I go to your house and I start putting mud on your couch and spray painting your kitchen, I bet you're going to kick me out. Well, we're going to do the same thing if you come into the United States as a visitor and create a ruckus for us. We don't want it. We don't want it in our country. Go back and do it in your country. But you're not going to do it in our country.
A Turkish student.
Okay. He said op-eds are okay. Rioting is not free speech. I'm sorry, was there a crime, or was this lady charged with a crime of rioting? Did that happen? Did I miss that? Blue John, I don't care. Destiny, this article mentions some of the NGOs that got federal funding from the USA. By the way, you spoke to one of the NGOs leaders. Yes, I'm sure there have been NGOs that have been funded that, if you look at all the sources of funding that an NGO gets, it's probably a lot, okay? And I'm sure lots of NGOs are involved in lots of different things. I'm sure you can find some NGOs that were probably involved with some mosque attack. I'm sure you can find some NGOs that were involved with protesting in favor of Israel's occupation, or outposters, right? I'm sure it happens. I'm not going to say that all of USAID or all of some program needs to be tossed because some percentage of its budget made up some percentage of some NGO that had some percentage of its activity in a way that would be bad, okay? That's retarded, okay? Jesus. The Israelis provided USA intel on the Yemen strikes and are complaining the intel was leaked. Oh, this is, isn't this exactly what I said would happen yesterday? That one of the reasons why information is secret is because one of the things that came out of that text chain was, we know this guy's going to his girlfriend's house, or we know he'll be here at some point. Maybe there's only one or two people that knew that information, right? And now that you've leaked that, even though the strikes already happened, the source is potentially compromised or burned, right? Israel provided sensitive intelligence from a human source on Yemen on a key Houthi military operative targeted in an attack described by two national... Oh, yeah, so this is exactly what happened, right? Yes. This would be auto-classified based on source, right? Of course it would be. Yes, it would be. Can you explain why should we give visa holders the same rights as citizens? I don't know if they should necessarily have all the same rights. So for instance, voting in like federal elections, but should they be given like free speech rights? Probably. I just think it's incredibly rich that Americans that take their one-dimensional understanding of the First Amendment want to go to Europe or look at Europe and say, you guys don't have freedom of speech because you don't have the exact same laws that we have governing freedom of speech. But then when you talk about people that are visiting our country on visa, you want to say that they have absolutely no free speech? What the f is your perspective on the First Amendment? That's bullshit. There is no consistent set of principles that can generate these contrasting opinions. It's bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Don't play that stupid bullshit here, okay? F you. What are your thoughts about foreign nations being involved in social movements in the United States? For example, I heard yesterday in a meeting with Tulsi Gabbard that China donates to Code Pink, which makes up 25% of their funding. I think it's bad, but this administration can't talk about any of that because this administration won't ever talk about how much Russia is doing on our foreign media because they are mind raped when it comes to Russiagate. So our current admin has no capability of dealing with any type of threat online because half the threat, which is Russia, Iran, Qatar, they're incapable of looking at because they see red, because they immediately think Russiagate. How can you talk to me about an administration and pretend that they take foreign intrusion on social media seriously when Trump, sitting next to Zelensky, is saying things like, "Oh yeah, me and Putin, we're basically war hero or war pals with each other. We went through the great Russiagate crisis of 2016. Like he knows what it's like to suffer." Or 2020. No, Russiagate. When was Russiagate? It was the election with it was against Hillary, right? It would have been 2016, right? Was that in Zelensky's? And then he said in a couple other ones. Why am I retarded? Trump, Zelensky, Vance meeting.
And I've known him for a long time. I've dealt with him for a long time. He had to suffer through the Russia hoax. You know, Russia was a hoax. It was all Biden. It was nothing to do with him. So he had to suffer through that, and he was able to do that. I think that he wants to make a deal, and he like.
Sorry, I keep calling it the Russia hoax. You're right. They've rebranded it to the Russia hoax. I'm sorry, but you were asking a good faith question about whether it should be allowed. I think that foreign funding like that is fine as long as it's State Department declared, right? That's what we have FARA for, the Foreign Agents Registration Act, right? Yes. As long as it's declared and not secret, then fine. The disclosure part is important, though. Did you see Germans found Hegseths and others involved in that chat? Emails, passwords, other person? Most of it was a nothing burger. It's whatever. There's always shit leaked on the internet. I did think it was funny, though, that Hegseth apparently had like a Russian email address and a Russian phone number, but okay. Okay. Oh, but also, I'm sorry. The FAR doesn't matter either, though, because I think we said we were going to stop investigating. I don't know if it was FAR or if it was one thing removed, where the administration said they're not looking into stuff like this anymore. DOJ disbands Foreign Influence Task Force, limits scope of FARA prosecutions. Both the task force and FARA were used by the Bureau to investigate, charge, and disrupt foreign and domestic actors accused of working to influence American policy on behalf of other nations. I'm not going to read this, I'm lazy. My guess is, well, it's not that long. My guess is that the FBI probably can still investigate this, but they got rid of like a special division that maybe specialized in it, so it's just probably not going to be investigated as much anymore, would be my guess. The free resources to address more pressing priorities and end risks of further weaponization and abuses of prosecutorial discretion. The Foreign Influence Task Force should be disbanded. Recourse to criminal charges under the Foreign Agents Registration Act and 18 U.S.C. 951 shall be limited to instances of alleged conduct similar to more traditional espionage by foreign government actors. With respect to FARA, Section 951, the counterintelligence expert, including the FARA unit, shall focus on civil enforcement, regulatory initiatives, and... Oh, okay, maybe they're not going after any of these things anymore then. Well, okay, cool. That's good. Good one. So they're only investigating like literal spies then, I guess. Okay. 3 weeks ago. Why are you linking this?
Understanding of what it's like to constantly be cast aside by your own peers. Having said that, that is nothing in terms of the violence and ritualistic humiliation that Palestinians are subjected to by a rabid settler colonial genocidal apartheid state that is doing terror on a daily basis.
Yes.
You do not need to cede ground to bad faith actors, but you can understand that you know, there are so many different approaches that people engage with. You are covering the news from an American progressive perspective. He's more extreme in his views because he's covering the news from the perspective of a dude who's living in a third world country. He's in a transigent. Having said that,
third world country? I thought he was like from or in Bolivia or something. Third world country, damn.
At the end of the day, there are multiple perspectives in any conflict, in any involvement. For the MLKs of the world, there was always the Malcolm X's of the world, and the civil rights struggle would not have been successful without both of these parties.
Just as a heads up, this is just a mistelling. This is like it's a reverse whitewashing of like civil rights movements and everything. So I think initially there might be claims of somebody might say you're whitewashing the movement by saying there was no violence. There was violence involved, but it's like the ultra whitewashing where like the white people, the white college kids come out and they're like, actually, MLK wasn't even that successful. The only reason that MLK was even able to get anything done was because of the awesome people like Malcolm X, because they knew that if they didn't listen to MLK, that Malcolm X was going to come give them the old 1-2 and beat them the up. And that's not true. And by the end of his life, Malcolm X said that violent protest was retarded, rioting was retarded, and then he got shot and killed by a Nation of Islam lunatics. So, okay, it wasn't effective. It just wasn't that effective. All right. The biggest gains the civil rights movement ever made were through non-violent protests. And practicing non-violence is not the same as just not being violent. Like, the goal for the civil rights marches were to induce, like the Palestinians, was to induce the other side to make attacks against you, right? Because when you get videos of that, photos of that, kids getting eaten by dogs and shit, that shit moves people. A lot of people feel super hella mad, and they take notice of your shit and they fuck you up. Who is this guy? Again, my viewpoint is that citizens and non-citizens have different protections. The way to change my mind on that is to bridge the gap between how citizens and non-citizens should be treated in the USA. If they arrested people indefinitely, I would agree, but they revoked their visa, send them back to their country of origin. The obvious answer should be that citizens and non-citizens in the same country, in this country, should probably be afforded the same rights, except in cases where it doesn't make sense, right? So, for instance, in elections, we might argue that it makes sense insofar as federal elections go, that only a citizen probably should be voting in a U.S. election, right? I don't even think green card holders can vote in federal elections. So that makes sense that you would limit that right there. But for, like, freedom of speech, I don't know. That doesn't really make sense. Why wouldn't a visa holder have the freedom to protest or say what they want in the United States? Or like due process, or, you know, not having troops quartered in your home. I don't even remember. What amendment is that? Like the 7th? That's like one that nobody talks about. The 3rd? No peacetime troops quartered in home. Would we say that, like, well, you're just a visa holder, so of course the government can quarter troops in your homes? Like that would be, like, why? What? So would you say we should use common sense? I would never advocate the use of common sense to try to determine what the law should be.